369 means that he doesn't have himself just like a bulwark champion to put towards that top side. Sejuani's made his way through the draft though. That was the last ban last time.
Do it,
really
Kanavi.
favoring the
Do
Lee
it,
Sin over
Kanavi.
that.
Do it,
LPL
Kanavi.
loves
Yes!
playing Sejuani with melee kind of combos, stuff like the Ornn, but Kanavi gets his chance on the Lee Sin this time. Tarzan, what are you going to have to answer that?
And it is Kanavi's most played champion. A lot of what he made his name on is the Lee Sin. The execution needed is there with the mechanical skill of Kanavi. You'll love to see that bounce back against Tarzan saying, nah, you can't take my Lee Sin into me and take it back. While Tarzan himself proficient on the Lee Sin and known for it. So we get that kind of contested mental battle between these two junglers. We'll see if we just get that late game ADC reliance here for JDG, and we all know the scary Zeri of Ruler.
Yes, so the Dragon might have been felled in game 1. Maybe it's a little bit more like a Hydra, cut off the head in game 1. See how many grow back in game 2. Ruler is one of the best, if not the best, Zeri in the world. And you know what? That champion being hovered, Knight is one of the very best historical Syndras to boot.
Really opting into some comfort here for them. Should be this Lulu locked in since it still is up on the table.
Yeah,
and there's the first 3 picks as a redemption arc starting for JDG.
So the thing is, you're probably losing the Syndra now. JDG, they had the losing mid-jungle TV2 in the first game. They couldn't push in very early. Having the Lee Sin Syndra would have solved that. So actually, in some ways, I wouldn't have minded that being locked in, despite the chance that you might give up the Aphelios Lulu, you lose the Lulu for the Zeri as well. As it stands, you're probably now going to have to ban away the Nautilus away from the Aphelios. That's been one of the answers into the Zeri Lulu because he doesn't force the fight onto the Lulu very early on into that game 1. Tarzan is going to pick up that Wukong. So actually a very strong dueling matchup between both these junglers. Lots of ways that kind of individual 1v1 can play out. Yeah. And they're both very strong 2v2s as well.
And so far, we've had 1 game on the Gragas from Scout, so I would expect maybe this to go there. But obviously, some adaptation possible. That pick's still flexible and potentially in the minds of LNG. We are seeing the focus for a second phase now as the LeBlanc banned away from Knight.
So this changes a couple of things, because with the Wukong locked in, you're not as scared of the Syndra, because if the Syndra gets hit by that Cyclone, they don't have the escape to get out of that kind of kill combo. Whereas LeBlanc, if they're dashing around, much harder for Tarzan on the Wukong to lock them down. We knew that Nautilus was likely going to hit the ban phase, but on the other side, it's banning away the mid laners, which could safely disengage from that Wukong. Knight might have to go back towards something, maybe even like a Victor, to just put down a grab field and say, look, I'm going to stand and fight, hopefully just be able to outlast and play at range of the Wukong. Yeah. You're not going to have your premier safe mid laners play against it.
We do see that Ahri ban, the Fiora and the Nautilus. Big pick that still is on the table is the Thresh that we've seen being rising in priority with the Aphelios, but still some good combos in its availability there. We do get the Renekton here for Zika.
Both of these top laners love playing the Renekton. It has been their premier blind pick. It's their most played champion for both of these players. So 369 doesn't have the Gragas. Of course, that Gragas first pick from LNG is a takeaway from one of the very best Gragases in the league as well, of the top lane variety. What have you got to answer this Renekton? Last time, we saw 369 not really be able to answer the Jax adequately. Couldn't outvalue in the team fights despite having a good Cassante game. It's going to be the Ornn, and that is a very good answer into the backline of the Aphelios, and maybe keeping some distance from that Renekton as well.
This should just be the lock-in here, I think, for JDG. Get this Syndra, get a little bit of continuation of the late game scaling for them. And really at this point, it's just Kanavi that has a point in presence in the early part of the game.
So, with this being locked in, it is going to be Thresh. So that's going to be the Gragas into that mid lane, which was, I suppose, obvious now in retrospect with the Renekton heading towards that top lane. It was very unlikely to be a Gragas support, but with the Thresh, Aphelios has a way out of, one, the immediate threat of the Lee Sin. A Lantern potentially saves you from Kanavi hopping over a wall, and it gives you a way to dodge out on the Ornn ult, besides a Gale Force and a Flash. LP suddenly feeling a lot better about team fighting with that last pick of Aphelios, because it stops some of that backline access being so lethal from JDG.
And last game, it was Tarzan that used his team's power from the lanes to get an invade off onto Kanavi early and up in his early pathing. Now Kanavi picking up his who's boss in game 1. We hit the rift for game 2 of JDG versus LNG, our match of the week.
You are feeling so dramatic today, and I fully support it. Now, funnily enough, we were talking about, what's a dragon without a knight to slay it? talked about that with LP facing off against Ruler. Ironically, you have the Knight versus the Dragon logo of LNG on the other side. JDG now have themselves an uphill battle. They have to take 2 games against LNG to come out with a victory here today, but they're doing off of some of their real signature picks, particularly Ruler Zeri, and then of course, Knight's Syndra. What a player of this champion he has been over the years. Taking the first strike, kind of fairly obvious, I suppose, into the lower range top side of LNG, and they do have a very low range top lane. Top side, rather, from LNG, which will be a problem if this goes super late game, and you have 369 putting that Call of the Forge God right the way through their team. You need to close that distance very quickly. Ornn makes that very difficult. Where that doesn't matter as much, though, is if you manage to get a good fight around something like Herald, the first ultimates of the game. Renekton very strong at that point. Gragas very strong at that point. LNG, a bit more of early game obligation compared to the last game.
We'll see how this bot lane duo works out this time. Obviously, lethal tempo started for both of these 2 ADCs this time around. Also, opposite side starts for both junglers. Now, there is still some options for some wraparound ganks, things like that. But I do wonder how this separated focus early on changes a little bit from what we got in game 1.
Well, what it means is that you're not going to see like the early dueling potentially coming through from both these junglers. We know that there is the 1v1 between the junglers is actually fairly crazy. We're just missing.
Dude, Ruler's just too good. He's on
Thresh
the Zeri now. I don't know. He's unlocked.
That he is. I mean, we saw how many sidesteps he had in some of his big highlight moments earlier into the split. Scout not quite able to get that barrel onto Knight at this point. Knight, last game, he played a champion. He had 27 career games on the Ahri. Played his 28th then. This one, he's got 42 on. This will be his 43rd game on that Syndra. 73.8% win rate, 6.4% KDA. Very proficient on this champion. On the other side, Scout. Yeah, Gragas mid, we haven't really seen that since like Season 3. It's been a very long time. Kind of fell off when he ruled the Season 3 World Championships, and the likes of Faker. Yeah. Just kind of going rampant on that one, but it's come back with a vengeance, and it's actually pretty good into the Syndra too. I love this. We have another interactive mid-jungle TV2, which is so fun to watch and get on.
I was excited to see Scout take this Gragas yet again, but I think the biggest thing for me for JDG is the fact that they do opt into a lot of this comfort. I know you were talking about Knight, but we had already mentioned Lee Sin, the comfort for Kanavi. He's got almost double the amount of games played on the Lee Sin than any other in competitive, and it shows that you have to opt into this if you want to find some strength in this and even the playing field into a 3rd game.
Do you think like picking comfort champions is like trying to win with the power of friendship? Is that the League of Legends version of it?
Yes, I feel like
it's like you may have beaten me on my Lucian Navi, but can you deal with my Zeri?
Well, I guess the answer is going to need to be pretty clear here. I think Ruler on the Zeri a lot more comfortable. I guess the Lucian Nami had looked so good, so that was where that big question mark came. How LP and Hung really got the advantage. Now we'll see that opposite side starts for both junglers lead to their first gank. Tarzan finds 369. The flash comes out. That'll be a big Summoner Spell burn.
Summoner Spell burn. Still have your flashes both available for Zika and Sasa. Wait, but guys, that's a Lantern gank? You're trying to do that? But Tarzan just showed top. How? Your jungler just showed top. They know he's not there.
The mind game and mind games, okay? It's 5D chess, not 4D chess.
Turns out Wukong and Warrior Trickster towards the other side of the map. There's no global teleport.
You didn't know that? Come on. Read the patch notes.
Crazy. I should have read the patch notes.
Like, come on, dude.
I'll work on that one for the next game, boss. Will there be a next game? JDG have to, of course, climb back into this one. Laning phase, even compared to last game, a little better. Of course, mid lane, they have the winning matchup. Gragas can threaten the Syndra, particularly post 6. If you blow a flash against a Gragas lane, you feel pretty awful about it. We saw that with Weibo RNG yesterday, actually. Blowing the flash, the laner against a Gragas, very important. Tarzan actually not managing to do that.
See, dupe him with the first one, and now you get the second one. We actually see the hover here.
I hate to say that you're onto something, but it kind of annoys me that you're onto something.
He will eventually be spotted out by that ward. Nicely placed. Some vision game coming alive for JDG here early on. LP getting traded heavy into the lane. Ruler getting some extra shots in as the heal had to come through.
So what LP was looking for there was the Graviton root, the Binding Eclipse, so it's called, into that hook. That's been one of the big bread and butter combos for the Aphelios Thresh, because you don't have to rely on just the Thresh kind of pick skill shots. You just kind of get that root into hook. And particularly nowadays with patch changes coming through, Thresh is getting to the point where he's maxing hook now. You can see that.
God, it does so much damage.
Just chunking him out.
Yo, is this
It does
AD
stop
Thresh or
Kanavi.
what?
Well, but this is the thing. Because you put multiple points into the queue now, there's some changes to the base damages. Thresh's hook actually has a lot more damage than it used to. We'll have to check if he's actually maxing that one out. I hope I'm talking sense there, because I really hope that he's not maxing E anyway. But either way, that's what we've seen a bit more. It's less than W maxing we saw with this before. Zika going to be...
That's a dominant
top side. He's controlling the top side.
Yeah, they do have at least a little bit of peel back for 369 with the Ornn. Actually, we see across the map Tarzan going for this early dragon, so starting to stack up for LNG, and maybe a little bit of presence in lane helping that as LP and Hung will roam up.
Managed to get themselves pushed in the mid lane as well. Fog of War towards the bot side of mid lane means that Knight not comfortable right now to push
roaming.
up.
Oh, that
He's
word
really
nicely
in danger
spotted.
here.
I don't know if he still gets out though. The cast back, the stun from Zika, and this is looking like first blood yet again as LNG strike first. The death sentence does not connect on the back end, but they'll take it all day.
And this is the worry of playing Syndra into this kind of composition. Comfort pick or not, it's just very difficult to play against the likes of Scout on this Gragas. Zika finds a break in the waves, manages to roam down towards that mid lane as well, very importantly so. Helps his team pick up first blood onto one of Knight's most famous champions.
And this was a R1 Gragas. They knew what was coming the entire time. It's Scout just continuously steps up for LNG. What a statement after, again, we had highlighted coming over from EDG, his home. He had gotten comfy and cozy there. And to come in and make statements like this game to game has been incredible.
That it has. LNG only just evening up gold at that point because laning phase actually going much more smoothly for JDG at this point. It's not Scout kind of putting mid lane on lockdown with Lissandra roaming off across the map and forcing JDG to play under tower, but Knight this time tries to push out himself. The threat comes into the mid lane as opposed to those side lanes. Kanavi up towards his top side, but has been read by Tarzan. This is a dangerous Knight. They don't see Tarzan.
They don't, and 369 taking up so much of the tower shots. That's another one. He just sacrifices his life. Zika gets the second kill of the game for LNG.
I don't see a world where that works. Yes, you have the level 6 Lee Sin, but Zika has the dominance either way. There was always a chance that that was going to go very, very poorly. And now, with 369 dying, it's going to be an inroad in towards this Herald for LNG. And that is a big, big moment in this early game. These teams are very early game focused when you look at particularly JDG. When they win lane, when they get ahead, they tend to stay ahead. They tend to crush games down quicker than anybody else. Fastest average game time in the entirety of the LPL. But LNG, they put the chokehold on them in game 1 and in game 2. Series of big victories. Threatens, he might do the same again.
And Scout had talked so much about form, and right now LNG are just all the way in form. 369 missing the knockup, and then just getting CC'd afterwards.
It's the worst case scenario. Hits with the first part of the Searing Charge, but doesn't get the knockup. So he still takes aggro, but then, yeah, actually, I'm wondering if it was Bramble Vest, actually, the auto attack, which ended up doing the
might have.
He took aggro. I'm actually not exactly sure. I assumed it was the first part of the E that hit, but, you know, maybe I'll have to go back and watch that one again. Bramble Vest, of course, item which helps an awful lot. Zika popping the dominance.
He does get a decent amount of poke here on the 369 as he's going down on the under tower. We did get the Rift Herald picked up by Tarzan though, so looking at where that gold's going to be delivered, he is heading down towards the bot side of the map now. Still a little bit of calmness from the bot side of both sides. That 2v2 not going to be as spicy as what we got last time, but Ruler again is checking in with his team like, guys, is everything okay? Are we doing all right?
He's bringing out the ruler to measure the team gap again. He's sat there like,
oh no!
Don't make me use this. Don't make me use this. As he sat there trying to cash in his cult, and Ruler will be at a point where it feels like.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering if that route into hook was going to come through. But yeah, Ruler at some point, because of the low range nature of LNG's composition, will have the ability to absolutely 1v5 in late game. And Ruler has been a player that has very consistently done that, uniquely on Zeri. So JDG holding out for that hope. Can they get to that point though? LNG at this moment, 2 kills in their Renekton. Means that side lane threat can be a bit of an issue. Zika has looked like a very different player when he's been able to pick his comfort picks and not have a huge counter pick slammed into him like Ale did with the cannon into Jax in earlier series. But in this game, with 369 behind, Zika ahead. LNG look very comfortable on this top side of the field.
They do. Now we're getting that bounce where both Tarzan and Kanavi are kind of responding to the same plays here. Now Zika is getting engaged on the top side. Does get hit by the second part, but he will make it out with the slice and dice. And we are just kind of seeing where that reactive play is coming through and Kanavi's proactive play needing to come through. We have Dragon in about 40 seconds. This would be second Dragon for LNG. Trying to stack that up, maybe try and deny JDG any of these early advantages. We do finally see those first items coming up. It is Knight first on the table with the Ludens.
So 369 won't have ult for this play. Kanavi trying to get himself involved in the game somehow, some way, but really struggled to do so on this Lee Sin so far. Tarzan, of course, on the Lee Sin the last game, had a bit of an easier look in, but even with the pushing mid lane, the early winning mid lane for JDG, Kanavi really actually struggling once again to get the better over Tarzan.
Rift Arrow finally used in bot lane as well, right where it needed to go. Trying to give LP some more gold. The hook connects over the wall. Not going to follow it up. The Graviton did, though. A couple more plates going down. LNG make it out.
Gold onto the Aphelios, always a valuable thing. LP going to get himself a little bit ahead of the curve once more. Doesn't have the cult to his name, of course, so that lead in that bot side, which you might assume comes in from the plates, maybe not the same. Tarzan.
We have Scout coming down as well.
Queue.
Yeah, we have a 4v4 brewing. As Zika actually backing now, has the option to TP if he needs to the tower at least, as 369 had used that TP, but he'll just go to respond there. And we'll continue fighting this 4v4 that LNG pushed JDG out of.
Yeah, very good point about that unleashed teleport thing. I was like, oh, but Zika, you can tell. Oh, wait, it's not 14 minutes. I still forget about that, you know. And I was like, wow, what happens if you teleport in with a Renekton? He's super strong, he's got a score drinker. Knock me this, missing Spugs.
The knockups missing. Having to use that wild growth, trying to get up, and the cast delivers him right back to LNG's waiting hungry mouths. The lightning crash from Ruler. He's actually getting some AoE here, but Moonlight Vigil shuts it down. And the chakras ring true. A double kill for LP and LNG. That's a heck of a start to game 2.
LNG, they out-team fought in game 1. They put JDG behind early, and even against the likes of Ruler, Zeri, Knight, Syndra, Kanavi's Lee Sin, they come out with a huge victory towards that bot side of the map. LNG pick up a host of kills. They do end up losing their jungler for that trade. It does mean that Ruler on the next back gets himself to his first item. Of course, that cult also popped as well, but LNG, considering where they left off, and giving JDG an awful lot of questions in these skirmishes.
And now LP having the Gale Force plus the BF sword in pocket. He's been doing a lot, and what a continuation to what has been a stellar series from LP.
We definitely mentioned that it's dangerous for Syndra and missing to Knight missing, I suppose, to play against this pick kind of combo, lots of displacement, hook threat, barrel threat, because they are the zero escape champions on the side of JDG. See the direct actually taken after this play and picture, but as soon as that hook lands, if Lulu is ever caught first, you feel so bad. If an enchanter dies at the start of the fight, you just don't get any value. I mean, if anyone dies at the start of the fight, you don't get value, but particularly enchanters, because they're so easy to focus down if they're the ones picked. It's such a big swing in how team fights are played out if they're the first ones picked.
It is indeed. Now we have a Rift Herald spawning in about 30 seconds here. With Tarzan pathing towards the top side of the map, could see a little bit of opt-in to that. Continuing to kind of stack up these objectives. They've had 100% neutral objective control. You see Ruler still doing fine and dandy with a little bit of given resources to him.
Oh, still got the most gold, which is kind of terrifying, actually, in a lot of ways, because what did we say earlier? If Ruler gets to the point where he's on 2-3 items, he has the move speed against this lower range composition to really outplay and 1v5. It'll have to be Graviton, it'll have to be Miracle Hooks and flashes committed onto the Zeri. But we've seen Ruler outplay so many of these situations on a champion he has really found huge success on. So watch out for that. Most gold in the game. LNG, despite being ahead, be wary of that.
We're seeing a little bit of movement and pings from JDG around this Rift Herald here. Tarzan is already here to contest. And a reactive play could come through. While Unleashed TP is now available, Scout has that trigger pull to try and join the fight if they need to, but it should be JDG. Oh, they're going to come try to contest this. The Rift Herald should go down already, though, to JDG. see if LNG want to continue to take the fight. Try to catch out Zika on the top side. He pops Dominus. He's looking for it. The rest of LNG, they have a flank from Ruler that they have to deal with. If they can pull back to deal with Ruler, then there's a big piece of the puzzle gone.
Yeah, that was the Leicester scene Zeri flank. Dominus is actually put by Zika on top side. Maybe there's a chance of he's way caught out.
He is so gone. You see immediately LNG are trying to pull up. That's a nice flash, but it's everyone from JDG stunning down onto Zika, and that'll be their second kill of the game here, getting right back in.
I was about to say, we haven't really seen the impact of it yet, but 369 is on Ornn. We've seen him for a great many years, despite his lacking presence in 2023. The follow-up from Ornn's ultimate is always something you got to be worried about. When LNG groups in that river was wondering if that was going to be effective. Ruler's going forward.
That is the lightning crash used, trying to get some poke on LP there. Box also going to be popped by Hung. LP getting very low. Another charge went through, and that's a tier 2 tower. It goes down to Knight.
Yeah, LNG, you know, we said they were ahead, but they had a couple of things they needed to be worried about. We talked about Ruler, the Ornn coming online very importantly at that point too, and Zika, who picked up his most played champion in the split in the Renekton, a pick which he's picked into so many different top laners and played it out to very strong play for his team. Gets caught out in a very important moment. 369 now back on the board.
And
somehow
find themselves in a
as
bit
well,
of a lead.
actually.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of annoying, because if Ornn gets ahead in terms of the XP, those items are going to come in sooner as well. And if you give those, you know, you get the, do you remember all the ornament names on the master packs? I know there's the Blood
I know most of them, at least a lot of the main picked ones. What's your favorite ornament?
I love Wormfallen Sacrifice. That's such a fantastical name. I really like that one. That's the Kraken Slayer upgrade, right?
I like the I can never say it, Syzygy.
Syzygy, yeah, it's an astronomical term. So we can go back to scientific termination.
Exactly.
It's kind of like an eclipse, but when I think it's the moon and the sun are on opposite sides of the earth. I think that's the way it works. Either way, it gets a little bit weird in that for us. Trying not to see into the dark side of the jungle though, as opposed to the dark side of the moon, as Vision getting put down towards the bot side of the map for the dragon spawning up in a minute. 2 dragons to LNG ahead in that mutual objective, and it is an Infernal Rift. Might not be a Hex tech in terms of the most powerful soul on the patch, but having the range of someone like Gragas barrels and having burst combos to try and put down someone like the Zeri, Infernal Assault, you will never turn that one down. So, JDG not content to give that one up. They've actually hit their items at this point, particularly with Ruler heading towards the second item. Very, very strong at this point.
I think he's actually backing for it right now.
Yeah, he's
or at
going
least getting
towards
close.
Mana 7. He's actually not going towards the Bloodthirster, he's going towards more attack speed.
There it is, it's Runeant.
Hurricane. Okay, you know what? That makes even more sense. I was wondering if it's going to be Phantom Dancer, but particularly because we talked about this being a very low-range team. With the Hurricane, you're likely to be hitting 2 or 3 people if you have the Renekton, the Wukong, and the Gragas engaging on someone, and Ruler just slips the net. If he gets to get full use of his Hurricane, already dangerous signs for LNG.
LP has red and white. They want to get this soul point for them, but JDG don't want to give this one up easily. TP from Knight. He just finished that Shadow Flame. We'll see Zika join the fight as well.
Points of power hit by JDG. If they're going to win a fight to get themselves ahead of this game, this is the one. They're even in gold, but Zika finds Ruler.
Stacking up. He does on the back. Ruler able to kite out a little bit more. JDG get pulled right back in. Moonlight Vigil. He's stacking up those chakrams, and now JDG are a little bit more questionable in this fight. LP is looking real big, but they're going to use the Ornn Horde back. Cast comes through. They can't get it. Can he get in the pit? Kanavi, he's back out of it, and Tarzan, with the help of LP, secure the Dragon's soul point for LNG.
Both teams really snatching at engages, trying to find the pick which will win the fight, but Ruler escapes. Zika and LP can't quite get enough done. It is soul point. JDG inside track on mid, trying to hold these choke points.
Trying to get a little bit more. They got the Calibrum now with the chakrams. TP now coming down here from 369. We'll see the engage goes back though. The tower's still alive. The tower's still helping. And LNG, they catch 369 in an overzealous engage.
I mean, 369 teleported in to die. He went straight into the hook. The tower's gonna die either way, but you lose it. You buy it, I suppose, with the blood of 369. LNG at least managing to get something out of that. Losing the mid lane outer turret, though, that's gonna be a bit awkward because despite them having a lot of power around that fight, just about managing to arm wrestle JDG away from that dragon, the question is, can you actually steal or can you secure the next dragon? Can you actually secure yourself that soul? You're on the 3. But if you can't win that 4th Dragon fight, because JDG are already seeming quite scary in these moments, things are going to get very difficult at that point. I mean, 369, he teleports to a minion to try and keep it alive. That's just really awkward. He gets alley-ooped right into the hook and hung on the Thresh. Getting good value out of this pick. It was the architect of missing. It was such a big pick at that point. He also, you know, hooked missing for one of the big early plays earlier into the game. He's going to be instrumental in keeping LP safe with his lances later in as well. Thresh getting value so far. LNG will hope he continues to do so.
And I really love it because they set it up to kind of wait for this. They were like, okay, go ahead and ban out some of the other comps that can go with the Aphelios. We'll sit on the Thresh. And it's such a big pick for Hung because he can help cohese with the team again. That was what stood out to me in game 1 on the Nautilus. Now he's right back to it with the death sentences as well as the dark passages for his teammates. Now JDG trying to move some vision up around this Baron pit. You got 3 minutes until that timer strikes midnight.
Okay, hook goes wide. See actually JDG able to brute force their way into the river. These hooks, very important that they land because they're the ones which can actually start chunking out members of JDG if you can follow up with something like an Infernal.
It's still so even, though.
It is really easy. And remember, last game, JDG was significantly further behind, and we still managed to get some better fights than they had any right getting. He was, I think I was saying, you know, any other team in the world, I probably would have written it off for them, but because it's JDG, if you give them at least a shadow of a doubt, another hook lands from the Hungbow. But when they're even, JDG, this team has some of the very best team fighters in the world, some of the very best mechanical players in the LPL. Cannot afford them to give them inroads.
And I see that the Jack Show has been upgraded for 369. So he's starting to get some of those upgrades for him. We'll see that second item, the Seraphs, completed for Scout. We also get the Black Cleaver for Zika. And that IE, I guess, for LP. No big deal.
Zika's champion from the first game. Actually, not in this game, but his shoes have made it. We've got Jax's shoes over on 360. Actually, what is it? Hang on. Do you know what the... Did you just say the Mazel guy's name? Because I cannot remember the life of me what Jack Show is.
You know, I can't remember it either. I know the Jack Show normal one is just like one of the coolest names in the regular game. I was actually trying to look up the... but you know, it's hard to find the ornament item names a little bit easily on Google here.
I'm really trying to think, but honestly, this stuff completely escapes me.
Oh, I got it. It's the Unspoken Parasite. That's what it's called. We'll see the shield bow actually completed as well, but is it enough? Kanavi gets picked by Tarzan, and now the cast comes to separate, and LNG are separating JDG for their life. You got Ruler pop the lightning crash, and he's getting that AoE. Nobody has touched him just yet, but LP has red-white. This is the moment to step up, and Ruler, he gets the kills, and huge moment from JDG.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown of the LCK, but Ruler keeps it high. He hit his items. We always knew he could have turned it on in the late game. He was in a position on this champion to outspace, to outdamage. And at the turning of the tide, Ruler comes away with the quadra kill.
That is what we've been building to this entire time. It's the build that comes online, but it's his masterful feat and execution that really makes it stick. LNG felt like they had the pick here, but it does not matter when you don't focus Ruler.
Well, Ruler was just in a position where you can't afford to focus him. He's too far away. He uses the walls for his mobility. And with a build like this Hurricane, it is all about choosing your moment and finding the right space. Because if actually you are the one flashed onto by Scout, you're the one who's kind of focused down by the Renekton, this fight looks so different. Ruler is not just a special player because he does damage. It's because he knows exactly where to stand to do the perfect damage. Play everything to the limit.
He got that shield bow upgrade right at the last moment, and it worked out beautifully. He's now on 3 items, and they are looking good for JDG as they're trying to catch Scout. Cast comes through. Here comes the rest of LNG, trying to save something here, but it's not enough. Scout getting locked down. The Dark Passage not there to save the day, at least not clickable. As JDG putting the wards on. They actually catch Kanavi here a little bit. Zika will be trying to put some damage down. Hung able to get out alive. Tarzan and LP, they got to make the great escape. As now the Gale Force gets used, LP with the Moonlight Vigil, they're going back in, 5-man Cyclone, but the Moonlight Vigil's not enough. LP's trying to put some work into 369, but here comes yet another lightning crash from Ruler, and they get the back off from LNG. It is a trade back and forth, 1-for-1.
Yeah, we might get caught up in how Ruler is doing. Crazy quadra kill just before this, but LP still has items. Just finished off that Infinity Edge, and he had the rifle turrets. You can't afford to stand on those turrets. Gives LP so much more range to play with, so much more damage to work with.
And we
and
still
now
have
with
a
the dragon
dragon
spawning, but we still have a dragon fight. LNG, they're going to be second into the river, but there are some low health bars in JDG for them to exploit.
And they don't have 369. They don't have a primary tank here. Here into the pit goes Tarzan. Can he secure it? He doesn't. Kanavi gets it, but they've caught Knight out. As the speed comes through, LNG strike back, willing to give that dragon over and pick off Knight.
So it's not Infernal Soul. JDG managed to stop that going down. However, without Knight there, you're not going to be able to fight towards this Baron start. Looks like LNG will at least get themselves that big objective towards that top side of the map. They'll be able to get regain control of a lot of the vision. They were losing across the river when JDG were walking up. However, JDG look like they're positioning on the top side of the map themselves. I'm sure they're ready to contest though.
Yeah, definitely not. That Baron going down quickly here. Goes over to LNG, so fight back here as well. But it is the inevitable scaling starting to come online with those ornaments and JDG as a whole.
What the heck happens here? It's the moonshot.
Grab it,
Calibrum Q. Activates the Calibrum afterwards. It's hook into that. That's what secures the kill onto Knight before that. They did manage to get down that dragon to LNG. Couldn't quite get off that steal. Of course, Lee Sin, one of the best objective securers in the game because of the execute damage on his Q, or rather just the very high damage when people draw up below certain amounts of HP. So, we are now in a position where gold is within 100. There are some basic dragons separating the two in terms of stats, but it's not nearly as much as it was before, because one of those infernal dragons was picked up by JDG. What are we looking for next? Really is looking for vision control after the waves have been pushed in by LNG. That could be the real kicker for JDG. They've been playing with vision control for most of this game. With Baron, it's going to be harder to secure that.
We do have 3 items coming across for Knight, but as well as LP on the other side. Or Dom's completed, but Tarzan needs to be a little bit careful as those catch-out tools are back and ready to go for JDG. Every time 369 is on the table, you've got to watch out.
Exactly. That Ornn ultimate, Call of the Forge God, can be the call of victory for JDG as well. LNG going to split apart the team of JDG. Use that Baron buff to put JDG into walk positions. They don't have that tank, but they're engaging.
They got a behind. That's Knight coming through. Moonlight Vigil there. Tarzan caught out. Here comes the cast from Scout. Lightning crash from Ruler. They can't jump. They get him down, but what did it cost? It's literally everything, as they might find Ruler, but they lose everyone because of it. That's the knockback and the ace for JDG.
They get Ruler, but at what cost? It does cost them everything. This looked like a game which LNG should have wrangled back into their control. Just push in the waves, get your vision control, stop JDG having that same platform, the playoff that they've done for the last 5-10 minutes. But they stumble. They allow JDG to walk up to them, find and engage, and they cannot close down the damage quick enough. Gonna go back to the replay to see how the heck this happened. Because LNG, they committed both of their solo lanes to bot lane to get that turret just before this. That means that they're not in position to follow up on this kind of play. Yeah, good flash on for Ruler. But the beauty of a player like Ruler is, remember that last fight when he had that quadra kill? He was like, okay, well, the reason that this happened is because you can't flash onto Ruler, because, you know, you're just going to have to, if you're flashing onto Ruler, you're not flashing onto the rest of the team. That's exactly what happens here.
And we see how they are able to pick that apart. Now we get almost the final ornament here, but Knight catching out Tarzan. Tries to get the re-engage with the Cyclone, though. Knight not having to get more tools. He flashes over the wall. LP trying to pick this kill up. He doesn't have the Moonlight Vigil, but Tarzan trying to chase down Knight. They get a bit of a speed up, and he gets knocked back. Can't get the kill just yet. Zika should be able to clean this one up, though. Not wanting to burn the flash for it, but he does anyways.
Knight on a solo mission in the enemy red side jungle. Not quite sure about that one. Maybe trying to join in the fun that Ruler had showed him just before that, but important pickoff for LNG. Again, a lot of what they're looking to do is secure vision control, pick off JDG across the map if they at all can. They find Knight in a very opportunistic moment. But after losing that Baron buff, this felt like it should have been in so much better position than they're currently in.
It really has, and we have another dragon spotting up in about 40 seconds, so we'll have that fight yet again where LNG are on the precipice of a soul, infernal soul at that, one of the most powerful.
Yeah.
Could make things even up here if they can. It's been such a contested fight and nothing short of what I would expect from our match of the week.
Yeah, no, this is a fight for the very top of the LPL. It really is just EDG sat above these two teams, but they're up there in the upper echelons. We've got 4 items on Zeri, a Bloodthirster, making it that much harder to kill off Ruler in this next fight, as much as it was difficult before this point. LNG, they have some vision control now. They've been looking for this for a while. What can they achieve with it, though, around this all-important dragon?
Find the death sentence on the 369, but that's not the person you want to pull in. Kanavi's on the side here, finding him yet another one. As Knight has now joined, it should be JDG moving a point and present in front of the Dragon Pit. LNG don't want to give them any more space to work with.
They don't, but they need to find a way to
16.
try and get past the Ornn. You need to get past the Ornn, otherwise the ultimate going down the entire length of your team can be very difficult.
This is a very split up fight right now. Knight trying to deal with Zika on the side. Tarzan and Kanavi right in front of the dragon. There's the double knockup of 369. Here comes the Ornn Horn. He can't get it across. No, he does. They don't find the damage on the Hung, though. He gets stunned back. That scatter of the week was actually huge. The box there. Zika taking up the side here with that Moonlight Vigil going wide, though. LNG losing a lot of their tools, and they pull away now. JDG doesn't want to give them space, as they will have to in the end. LNG give up this dragon, and that'll be JDG delaying the soul even further.
LNG, when they got their 3rd dragon, we were sat there thinking, yeah, that's all good, but can you win the 4th one? No, they couldn't. Couldn't win the 5th one either. Now JDG with 2 Infernal Dragons buffing up their offensive stats. More items being built up, and the late game has been reached. Ruler is an absolute weapon of war at this point. Got a stopwatch on top of his 4 damage items as well. LNG really struggling to get past 369 in these big, long corridors. Even on the Infernal Rift, where you've lost some terrain, which means that Ornn can't tap you into choke points quite as hard, still able to really shut the door on what LNG want to do. Particularly Zika is really struggling to find value on the Renekton in the late game.
Yeah, he's been just kind of a point of pressure right now on the side, not able to get much in the big team fights, but we did get 4th item completed for LP, so this tankier member is going to be a little bit less tanky against this Lord Dom completed, and it's just about the execution of team fights right now. If JDG have a front to back that Ruler can shoot through, it's going to be easy does it for JDG in these next few fights.
And, as much as LP has the 4 items, has a lot of damage right now, he's only hitting the 1 target most of the time, unless it's an Infernum coming through. Hurricane in this kind of game, the value of it is that you're hitting so many people. Scouts on the flank has flash.
Oh my god, Tarzan just dead! Holy cow, your jungler's gone! They're trying to desperately fight a play, but LP might get picked out. No, he gets some damage back, but here comes Ruler, and here comes the damage center of JDG. Zika slices and dices his way out, but there's a TP to mid lane, and JDG want to push us to 3.
It starts with a Knight in shining armor in the mid lane. That Syndra damage is absolutely disgusting. And that will be the pick which leads to the winning fight in Game 2.
Should be going to 3, as was destined between 2 of our top teams. One last ditch effort and a beautiful golden show from LNG. But that golden show will lead to a tough fought loss in Game 2. And JDG show us just why they're so damn good. And they pushed the comp that they needed to in Game 2, changing a few pieces here or there and really taking it to LNG.
And I don't really care which side you're supporting. I know every single one of you would be lying if you said you didn't want this to go to a Game 3. We are here to be entertained with some of the very highest level League of Legends we've got in the globe right now. JDG, LNG giving us an absolute show of entertainment.
They absolutely did. What wonderful stuff here, and a bounce back that was truly needed from JDG. We said in Game 1, it was the presence of LNG in the jungle of Kanavi that really set him off kilter, and that led them to not have that early advantage you typically want from Kanavi. He picks out his Lee Sin, saying, Tarzan, nah, Ruler also says to LP, you can't just put me down like that and not expect me to come bounce back. And there is a reason why this JDG team has been put together, and you got so many super pieces on what would be a super team.
Yeah, and, you know, this is what we want to see from these teams, them pushing each other, adapting, going towards comfort when it calls for it. And while Kanavi was not the real difference maker in the majority of this game. At least being able to come back from that game one where he really struggled and to set his carries up for success just enough for Ruler and Knight to make the game-winning plays. That's very important. Of course, he also got a shout-out 369. We're talking about how Zika got the better of him in that game one. That on pick, we don't see it much anymore, but you can see how much it matters to actually buy some safety for Knight, have that call of the Forge God, buy space for Ruler as well. And that was huge value, which JDG used to bring us to a game 3.
And those ornaments coming up, perfect timing of power spikes, especially that big play from Ruler, the power spike of the upgraded shield bow. And it was just putting pressure on to LNG the entire time that there was not as much of a response. I loved that Baron play. They were able to sneak that one away. They were never able to secure that soul. That game looks a lot different if you do take that Infernal Soul and you have a little bit of punch back.
Yeah, and particularly in that game too, you can definitely say that every single player is turning up to play. I don't think game 2 is determined by someone having a bad game. Game 1, yeah, you can say maybe Kanavi overplayed his hand, maybe you can put some criticism there, but even then he had some pretty okay games going into the late game as well. This is the beauty of seeing the top teams in the LPL. Players turn up in the big games, and they give us so much to be excited about. Ruler,
look at that LPL gold grab,
he's
baby.
got over 1,000 DPM there. Give him a Zeri, you know what's going to happen to you.
My goodness, what a way to do it as well. And strong finish. That was a very contested back and forth game. Again, LNG not giving it easily to JDG. But again, that adaptation in draft really meant a lot. And I do wonder how LNG respond to this one especially.
36% of his team's
That's
damage.
insane. That's
absolutely
actually insane.
insane.
200% gold to damage ratio as well.
Well, but gold efficiency, when the amount of damage you're doing per gold for Knight and Ruler being over 200%, absolutely absurd. It's kind of hard to put that into perspective. We don't talk about that stat quite as much, but you're normally sitting around about 140%, 160%. Absolutely insane damage carrying from JDG's carries.
Indeed.